So today we will start with our
Yes, sir.
last topic. This is our last topic in the course, digital image interpretation. It's a pretty long topic. You know, digital image interpretation. It's a very vast topic. We will be just scratching the surface. It's only possible to scratch the surface of this particular topic in this course. So we will we'll try to discuss as much as possible in digital image interpretation, whatever is required for a basic remote sensing application using various GIS platforms. So we'll be brushing through that, and yeah, let's get into it. So digital image processing or digital image interpretation is the next topic. Yeah. So this, what is this digital image interpretation or analysis, digital image analysis or digital image processing? What is this? What do you mean by this digital image interpretation and analysis? So it's a you are manipulating and interpreting digital images with the aid of a computer. That is basically digital image interpretation. Here you are. What are you doing? You are basically manipulating and interpreting a digital image. Suppose like a maybe a satellite image or a airborne scanner data or a airborne digital camera data, photogrammetric scanners. So any remotely sensed data, you are manipulating that data and you're interpreting that to obtain some information from that image. That is digital image interpretation. So we have a lot of possibilities to collect aerial photographs or satellite images. Now we have various sources now. Like you have commercial and governmental earth resource satellite systems. We saw that in your assignment, right? You have Landsats, you have sports, you have IRS satellites. Several commercial and governmental earth resource satellite systems are there. Can anyone mention a commercial satellite system? Yeah, we don't
Yes,
have
sir.
heard of SpaceX, right? It's a commercial satellite system. Whether it is used for remote sensing or not, it's another story. It's a commercial satellite system. But can anyone name a commercial satellite system which is used for remote sensing or digital image acquisition? Anyone? Heard of Iconos, CubeBird? Few of these you might have heard, isn't it? Have you heard of these? Okay, so you have commercial and governmental Earth resource satellite systems. Then meteorological satellites. You have airborne scanner data. You have airborne digital camera data, image data generated by photogrammetric scanners. You have then high resolution digitizing systems are there. You have n number of options to obtain a digital image or a aerial photograph or a satellite image of a region now, right? So all these forms of data, all the data from all these sources, they can be processed and they can be analyzed using various techniques. There are n number of techniques to process and analyze and interpret these data. So yeah, before coming to that, what data are we actually collecting from all these, your Earth resource orbiting satellites, your aerial photographs, or whatnot, your airborne digital camera data, photogrammetric scanners. What data are you actually collecting? What is the data that you are collecting? What is in these images? What are these images actually? Energy from a particular object. And where does that energy come from in the first place? Yeah, it comes from the sun. Whether it is that it can be reflected energy or it can be emitted energy, right? Isn't it? So the reflected energy or emitted energy is actually captured by our remote sensing sensors, right? Isn't it? So that energy
Yes,
is captured in various wavelengths, isn't it? That is what we saw in the first class of this course, electromagnetic spectra. Do you remember? You have the UV spectra, you have the visible spectra, you have the IR spectra, you have microwaves, you have radio waves, you have X-rays, isn't it? Do you remember? Depending, varying from the shortest to longest wavelengths, right? So this data that is collected is nothing but the energy that is emitted or reflected from various features on the Earth's surface, right? That is the data that you are actually collecting. So some, I have listed down, some ranges or bands or wavelength ranges of data that is actually collected and what it is generally used for. Okay, so the visible and IR. What is the visible wavelength range? Anyone? Yes, the range of wavelengths in the electromagnetic spectra, right? That we can observe with our eyes, isn't it? So this visible spectra or the visible range of electromagnetic spectra or the even the infrared range, these are generally used for remote sensing, microscopy, material characterization, etc. Then coming down to the specific parts in the visible spectra, visible blue, that is about 4.45 to 0.52 Newton micrometer. It is used for water penetration. Then visible green 0.52 to zero point 0.6 is used to identify plant vigor. Then visible red 0.63 to 0.69, you can use it for vegetation discrimination. We have seen that spectral reflectance pattern of various plants and all. Do you remember? Within the same feature for different species, how the spectral reflectance pattern varies. I had shown you the figure and all. Do you remember? Because every all the plants have a slightly high reflectance in the green range because the chlorophyll absorbs the blue and red range. Then there will be a small peak in the green, but after that red in the near and IR range and all, it the reflectance shoots up, isn't it? And for various species that reflectance will be highly varying. Do you remember? So that visible red region or the near IR region and all, they are used for vegetation discrimination. Then near IR 0.76 to 0.90, that is used for biomass mapping and shoreline mapping. Then mid IR 1.55 to 1.75, you can use it to identify the moisture content of soil and vegetation. Why is that moisture content you are doing it in that, you are sensing it in the mid IR range? Because that is a range where the atmospheric absorption is less, isn't it? Do you remember that atmospheric windows? Do you remember? You had ozone, carbon dioxide, water vapor, etc., absorbing the reflected or emitted radiations, isn't it? So this range, the mid IR range, 1.5 to 1.75, that's an atmospheric window where you have good reflectance for this particular purpose, moisture content of soil and vegetation. Then you have the mid IR again. You can use it for mineral mapping, mid IR in the range of 2.08 to 2.35, you can use it for mineral mapping. Then the thermal IR range, about 10.4 to 12.5 micrometer, you have soil moisture and thermal mapping. Again, soil moisture there. You see, that is another atmospheric window. If you remember the graph of atmospheric window and the different absorbance, you might have observed that thermal IR range 10.4 to 12.5. Again, you can identify the moisture content because in those ranges your absorption by water vapor was less. Then thermal mapping also, it is possible in the thermal IR range. Then comes our microwave band, radar, where the waves can penetrate clouds, vegetation, ice, etc. What is the importance of microwave band? Microwave remote sensing. Can anyone tell me the importance of microwave remote sensing? They have very long wavelengths. So, what is the advantage of having long wavelength? You can collect data at any time. Then, anything else? What are the energy interactions happening in the atmosphere? Scattering, and the other one was? So one was scattering and the other was absorption. So these both are not, microwaves are not affected, generally not affected by these two energy interactions. So it can actually, further it can also penetrate clouds and all. You can actually see through these clouds. Even if there is a cloud cover in a region, if you are using microwaves for sensing, you can actually see through these clouds because they are not hindered by these clouds. There is not much atmospheric absorption or there is not much scattering for microwaves, isn't it? Do you remember that Mie scattering, Rayleigh scattering, non-selective scattering, etc. we had discussed, right? That actually depends upon the wavelength of the electromagnetic radiations also, isn't it? So microwaves are really large long wavelengths, isn't it? Then comes our radio bands. After microwave band, we have the radio band, which can be used for geological explorations. You have seen our geophysical testing and all, no? Seismic refraction methods and all. So in that you use these radio bands. Then in the industry you use that. In medicine, ONG, obstetrics and gynecology. In ultrasound images, etc., you use radio bands. Then for minerals classification, marine sounding, echo sounding, and all also you use radio bands. So these are the, I'm just brushing up the various components of the electromagnetic spectrum and where its application lies. So just brushing up that. So you have various sources of data now, and in this various sources of data, this various different bandwidths or different wavelengths of data are sensed, and these data are processed, interpreted, and analyzed in a computer for various applications like these. I've just stated a few examples here. All right, now coming to the various steps of digital image processing. So, the central idea behind digital image processing is very simple. This digital image, the data that you have collected, it's actually fed into a computer, right? You use different softwares for that. So what it does is it selects one pixel at a time, or it is fed into the computer at one pixel at a time for processing. So this data, the data that is collected in one pixel, it is actually the computer, it feeds it into a equation or a series of equations, and you transform it, you analyze it, you apply various mathematical functions on it. You basically process that image and you try to analyze that image, and then once you do that, then you store the results of the computation for each pixel. So each pixel, one pixel at a time, is entered into the computer, and that pixel it is processed using various approaches, and then you save it, and you save it one pixel at a time. So these results form a new digital image. With the results, the processed pixels, they form a new digital image that will be displayed or recorded in the pictorial format, or may itself be further manipulated by additional programs. That is the basic ideology of digital image processing. So, I have shown the same thing in a flowchart here. You have the data which is converted one pixel at a time. It is plugged into an equation or a series of equations. Then that data is stored in the computer. The results for each pixel is stored in the computer. So they form a new digital image which is displayed or recorded in a pictorial format. So this can be manipulated in various ways using various programs or additional methods for different applications. Right. So the various components of a digital image processing system, you already know this now, because you first thing, obviously the first thing that you need to collect the data is a sensor which acquires the images, right? Sensor which senses in different bandwidths of wavelengths. It collects this data at various wavelengths. So you have a sensor for that. Then it converts the images. You have a digitizer. Now everything is digital, right? Digital photography, right? So you have a digitizer which converts that images. So from the sensor, the image is acquired, and or some data is acquired, or the energy that is emitted or reflected is actually captured, and that is digitized into a image. Then after that, you have the source image. You have the digitized source image. Now that is processed using a arithmetic logical units or operations on these images using specialized image processing hardware and software both. Then you have the computer systems where you have software for processing. Then once you process the image, it is saved in a GIS system, and it is mass storage is there. It is stored for various applications, and then it is networking. Then it is distributed over a set of users for various applications. So these are the various components of a digital image processing system. So now coming to let's get into a bit more detail into the steps of digital image processing, and then to the various digital image processing operations on an image. So various steps that are adopted in digital image processing. Let's see that first. So the first one is image acquisition and pre-processing. As we discussed now, you acquire the image, various sensors will acquire the image, it is digitized, it is pre-processed, and it is digitized and saved. First thing. And once that is done, then you will take these images and use it. You will process that images for various applications. So various digital image processing techniques are there, or processes are there. So one of them is image. First one is image enhancement. You enhance the image, you bring out the not very prominent, or you bring out the obscure details, and you highlight the features of interest. That is image enhancement. You enhance the image. Then comes image restoration. So mathematical improvement of the image appearance. Maybe some part of the image might not be clear. So what you will do is you will, there are many mathematical approaches to do that. We will see that. So there are many mathematical approaches, nearest neighbor interpolation, several processes are there. So you will adopt uh, one or few of these processes to restore some, restore or improve some portions of a digital image. So that is image restoration. Then you do the color image processing. Color processing you will do. Then you have the wavelet transform. The wavelet transform is one type of image processing method which is used for image compression or image subdivision, etc. Wavelet transform is one type, just one type of transform to compress the image probably. Then further you can compress the image because you want to reduce the storage required to save these images, or reduce the bandwidth required to transmit the same. Maybe you might have seen one satellite image. It covers a lot of kilometers, isn't it? Maybe 50 kilometers by 50 kilometers it will cover. A small photo that you take in your mobile phone itself is about 2 to 5 MB, isn't it? So what do you think about such a large area, a photo that is covered by a satellite? Will be in, it will be in maybe uh, hundreds of GBs, or maybe a TB, isn't it? Right? So those images has to be compressed for further networking or transmission, isn't it? Have anyone downloaded a Landsat image? What size was one image? One Landsat satellite image, maybe Landsat 7, one image. Have anyone tried downloading it? What was the size of that image? Anyone? So that one image is something about 1.5 GB. One photo, just one photo is about 1.5 GB. So that images are actually compressed images. You have to reduce the storage required to save those images, or reduce the bandwidth required to transmit the same. So that is compression. That is another step. Then comes the morphological processing, where the image components are extracted for identifying various features in the image. That is morphological processing. Then comes segmentation, dividing the image into its constituent parts or objects. This raw pixel data, you are dividing the image into that. That is segmentation. Then comes representation. You have to identify whether a area is a boundary or a complete region. You have to take a decision on whether the area is a boundary or a complete region. A boundary means for external shape characteristics to identify extents or boundaries. So for that, you have to decide whether the a particular portion in the image is a boundary or not. Then a complete region, to identify the texture or skeletal shapes. For that, you need a complete region. So next step is representation. You have to decide whether the area is a boundary or a complete region. Next comes description. You are describing that image. You are selecting various features, and then you are quantitatively differentiating various classes. Maybe land cover classes. Suppose you take a satellite image and you are describing that image, or you are quantitatively differentiating that image into various classes. Okay, this much percentage of the area, or this much square kilometer is forest land, this much square kilometer is built up, this much square kilometer is water body, this much is open area, this much is a rocky outcrop. So like that, you describe and you assign various features, and you quantitatively differentiate each of those classes. Final one is recognition. You are identifying and labeling each of the various features or objects in that particular image. So these are the various steps involved in digital image processing: image acquisition and pre-processing, image enhancement, image restoration, color image processing, wavelet transforms, compression, morphological processing, segmentation, representation, description, and recognition. These are the various steps in digital image processing. Next, coming to digital image processing operations, how to process a remotely sensed image. So there are various applications in that. For that, there are various approaches for that. You have very complex mathematical approaches for that. So we are not going to go into the complex mathematical concepts behind it, or the software behind it, or the hardware behind it, because these keep on getting updated over time. Every day there is some new invention or new discovery in this area, and they keep on getting updated every day. So we will just go with what are the various operations and what is the concept behind these operations, or why they have to do so and so operations, and what is the concept behind doing this operation. This is what we are going to deal with further in this chapter. So various operations, broadly speaking, there are several operations on an image, digital image processing operations on the image. You have to rectify an image, you have to restore an image, you have to enhance an image, you have to classify an image, data merging and GIS integration, hyperspectral image analysis, biophysical modeling, image transmission and compression. There are several operations that you can do on a image, various operations that you can do on a remotely sensed image. So let's start with image rectification and restoration. Today I will just brush through each of these topics, and tomorrow we will go into detail into each of these topics. All right. So the first one is image rectification and restoration, which is basically a image pre-processing method. Where you will we already saw that image enhancement, image rectification, etc. It's the first step. It's the pre-processing. So what you do there is you correct the distorted or degraded image data. Maybe the satellites or the airborne sensors, they are continuously in motion, so there might be a possibility of distortions on the image, right? So these distortions or degradations in the image data, they have to be rectified first, and then they have to be restored before further processing, right? So these processes are called pre-processing of the image. Before you go with any further interpretations or analysis or processes on the image, you have to pre-process a image, so to make it actually complete. You have to restore an image to make it complete before you go for any further operations. So the first one is image rectification and restoration. That this process is called the pre-processing of an image. Okay, so where you will correct distorted or degraded image data. So there are various methods or applications in steps in that. You have geometrical distortions which could be corrected. You have radiometric calibrations. You have noise elimination. Various approaches or various steps are there to carry out image rectification and restoration. Next one is image enhancement, where the images, once you enhance the image, you display the image more effectively for better interpretation. You can increase the visual distinction. Just like you guys edit your photos for posting it in maybe Instagram or Facebook or something like that. What you do, you basically edit that image, and you are enhancing the features, right? You are bringing out the better features in that, so that it is interpreted better, it looks better, right? So something like that, something similar to that. You enhance the image so that the specific features or your particular application, for your particular application, this processing increases your visual distinction, so that it is easier for interpreting those images. So that is image enhancement. Then you have image classification. That is another operation on a digital image classification, where we already saw that land use land cover classification is one example. We discussed that in the previous class. So where you quantitatively identify features in an image, land cover identity of each pixel, right? Then you have this spectral pattern recognition or spatial pattern recognitions, where when the decision rules are based solely on spectral radiances observed in the data, we refer to that classification process as spectral pattern recognition. Okay, so in contrast to that, the decision rules, if they are applied based on the geometric shapes, sizes, or the patterns present in the image data, then that procedure is called spatial pattern recognition. So you have spectral pattern recognition and spatial pattern recognition to identify and quantitatively identify and classify various features on a image. So that is spectral pattern recognition. If it is identified based on the spectral radiances, maybe based on the spectral reflectance pattern, you are identifying a particular feature. But if you are identifying a feature based on shape, size, pattern, texture, and all, it is called spatial pattern recognition. So using any of these approaches, you can go for a quantitative, classification of the image. Then once you identify that all pixels of that image, it can be classified to a particular theme of land cover. So this process is called thematic mapping. That's an important term I want you to keep in mind. You are the intent of this classification process itself. It is to categorize all pixels in the digital image to one or several land cover classes, right? Forest or open area or water or built up or agriculture or plantation. You are supposed to you are doing all these to identify various features. So in the context of land cover, I am saying this. So if you are trying to identify various land cover features on a particular image, then once you do that, what are you actually doing? Your intent is to categorize various pixels in that image into different land cover classes or different themes, right? Themes. You select a theme, forest. These many pixels in that image, these are all forest. I identified that. I processed the image, I identified that all these pixels represent forest. All these pixels represent water. All these so and so pixels represent a built up area. So you classify each of them into various themes, and these categorized data can be then used to produce thematic maps of the land cover present in a image, or produce summary statistics of the area covered by each land cover type. Okay, forest area, 22% of the full image, 22% of the pixels are forest land, 35% is built up land, 12% is water bodies. Like that, you can generate or you can prepare thematic maps which classify the image into various themes of land cover. So that is thematic mapping. See, thematic mapping is, I am just mentioning that in the context of land cover here. Thematic map, if you are mapping an image based on any theme, suppose you are going for a mineralogical application, okay, mining app, maybe a mining application. You are using a remotely sensed image. You are actually producing a map which shows the possible availability of a particular mineral. So you are creating such a map. Okay, in this map, so and so pixel areas actually has a high probability of having so and so mineral. So that is a thematic map. That is a map with a theme of that particular mineral. It's a thematic map. So this is the theme of that particular map, or a soil map. What is the theme of a soil map? Soil classification, isn't it? So you can classify the pixels of an image into various themes and provide maps which can be used for various applications, maps representing various themes. So this is called thematic mapping. Another operation that you can undertake is data merging and GIS integration. So you combine the image data with previously geographically referenced data sets for the area. What do you mean by this geographically referenced data set? Anyone? Geographically referenced. More common term is geo-referenced. What is geo-referencing? Associating a particular image with its location, with its actual coordinates, isn't it? So that is geo-referencing. You can, what can you use for geo-referencing? What is the major component in geo-referencing? What do you use to do geo-referencing? GCPs, right? What are GCPs? Ground control points can be used to geo-reference a particular image, right? So this geographically referenced data set, you have this data merging and GIS integration. A classical example is overlay analysis. Image, you have a data of various parameters in the soil type, topography, drainage patterns, water content, permeability, or ground slope. So merging all these, you can merge these using a GIS platform. You can merge these, you can do an overlay analysis, and you can provide a particular data, which was the probability of landslide in an area, isn't it? So something like that, you can combine image data with previously geographically referenced data sets, and you can merge it, and you can produce or develop particular application based results from that, right? Then next is hyperspectral image analysis. So what do you know? What is hyperspectral system? What is a hyperspectral system? Have anyone heard of hyperspectral systems? Something below that is multispectral systems. Have you heard of multispectral systems? MSS. is your eye, your eyes. What is that? It's a multispectral system or a, what is it? It's a multispectral system because it is collecting data in various spectrums of the electromagnetic wavelength or the various bandwidths in that electromagnetic spectra, isn't it? You are collecting data in the visible spectrum, but in the red, green, and blue, right? In multi-spectrum, it is collecting the data, right? Similarly, various satellites now they have multispectral sensors. What do you mean by that? They collect data in various spectrum. You collect the data in the visible spectrum, you collect data in the near IR, you collect data in the mid IR, you collect data in the thermal IR, you collect data in the microwave region. You are collecting data in multiple bandwidths. Your sensor is capable of collecting data in multiple bandwidths. Those sensors are called multispectral sensors. Then you have hyperspectral sensors. Even suppose within, what is the visible bandwidth of blue? What is the wavelength, the range of bandwidth of blue? Anyone? Something in the range of 0.4 to 0.5, isn't it? Our eyes can sense only 0.4 to 0.5. We cannot divide that into 1,000 another one, 0.4 to 0.41. That is one bandwidth, 0.41 to 0.42, 0.42 to 0.425. Hyperspectral systems, they can actually collect data in very minute ranges of wavelengths. You divide a particular bandwidth into thousands of different bandwidths. So data collected in such systems are called hyperspectral images, or such systems are called hyperspectral systems, HSS, and multispectral systems, MSS. Okay, so hyperspectral image analysis is another process in digital image processing. So where here you have a large volume of data because you are collecting images in a lot many different bandwidths. Instead of collecting one color blue 0.4 to 0.5, I am sensing some data. Instead of that, 0.4 to 0.41, you are collecting some data. 0.41 to 0.415, you are collecting another set of data. So you have very large volume of data in hyperspectral image, hyperspectral sensors. So this data, they are very specific application oriented, this hyperspectral sensing. So you have very large volume of data. So you have specific image processing for this hyperspectral images. So that is another application or another process that you can undertake in digital image processing, which is hyperspectral image analysis. Then next one is biophysical modeling. So biophysical modeling, it's a you use it to simulate the functioning of the environmental systems in a spatially explicit manner, or to predict their behavior under a under varying conditions, or a what if condition. What if so and so happens? What will be the outcome? Such as global warming or climate change. So if the climate change happens, what if the temperature rises by 1 degree? What will happen to this particular area? So this you will try to model using a remotely sensed image. You can do some processing, digital image processing you can do, and you can actually model these biophysical activities. Quantitatively relate digital data from the image to a biophysical feature or phenomena on the ground. You can estimate crop yield, right? Crop yield estimation is one biophysical modeling example. Pollution concentration, water depth, all these are data that you can derive using biophysical modeling of remotely sensed images. Predict behavior under simulated or expected altered conditions. As I mentioned, what if conditions. For example, climate change or forest fire or oil spills, estimating the crop yield. All these are various examples of biophysical modeling. And the last one is, of course, image transmission, image saving this, transmitting this, compressing this, and transmitting this. So for that you use various image further image transform techniques. Like one is like wavelet. One example is wavelet transform. You have several transform techniques. You have Gabor transform. You have Fourier transform. You have wavelet transform. Various transform techniques are available. So out of that wavelet transform, it can be used to compress a particular image, or you can break it down into its component parts, pixel by pixel, or lower resolution. You can break it into its component parameters or component parts using a transform called wavelet transform. And once you do that, you can further compress the image, or you can transmit the required data. So that is another process associated with digital image processing on a remotely sensed image transmission and compression. So what are the various processes that is possible? Image rectification and restoration, which is pre-processing, image enhancement, image classification, data merging, GIS integration, hyperspectral image analysis, biophysical modeling, image transmission, image compression. These are the various operations, digital image processing operations on a remotely sensed image. So we will see these various operations and why it is done in the next class onwards. Another 3 or 4 classes we will deal with various digital image processing operations. Once we are done with that, I think we can wind up the topic, wind up this particular course. This is our last course outcome. Thank you.